Camo Dave, who does a parody channel about nomads, and some other nomad channels, have been talking a lot about what will happen at the 2020 RTR, specifically where will it be held. Now the RTR, the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, is a gathering of nomads that happens every year and is produced by a person by the name of Bob Wells of Cheaprvliving fame. Since the inception of the RTR, the event has always been held in Quartzite, Arizona. Part of the reason for that is that the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous is a place for people who are nomads to learn about nomad life, how to survive on the road, where to find jobs. And right after the RTR is one of the biggest RV shows of the year, in which jobs are filled nationwide for work campers in what's called the Big Tent. Unfortunately, after this year's RTR, some of the local people voiced concerns over all these thousands of nomads, supposedly 10,000 nomads, poor people living in the desert and using the resources of Quartzite, Arizona. Tiny Quartzite, Arizona. The reality of the situation is, most of the people who go to the RTR aren't poor. These are people who drive some pretty nice rigs. Some of those rigs cost well over $100,000. There was even a guy who had a Prevost bus there this year. There's even a guy, Sasnak, who has his rig inside a diesel truck. Now that's not cheap. And of course, there's the average van guy who's driving a $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 vehicle as well. The RTR appeals to everyone. It's also true that the RTR people are especially conscious of cleaning up their campsites and leaving the desert in better condition than when they found it. And in fact, they do cleanups in places they don't even occupy. It's also true that Quartzite, Arizona offers services to groups like the RTR and to other visitors in order to encourage more business in the area. In my case, I spent money at the local stores, at the gas stations. I bought clothing there. I spent money at a private RV park to shower. I ate at the local restaurants, and I spent money that I wouldn't have spent if it weren't for the RTR, because I wouldn't have been there at all. But that hasn't stopped some of the local griping about poor people getting free things from the government and living on the backs of the government, which was complete false propaganda. And it was of great interest to me in reading some of the comments posted that some local people had said the RTR would never appear at Quartzite again because of local opposition. From my point of view, it was very unfair propaganda leveled at Bob Wells, who really does advocate for the homeless and the poverty-stricken. And Bob Wells has always encouraged even the poorest of people to build up a cash reserve and not be reliant on other people. But really, when people go to the RTR, they are very responsible. We're certainly not lushes on the backs of the people of Quartzite. Now apparently, the Cheaprvliving people are having some trouble getting a permit out of the BLM for the 2020 Rubber Tramp Rendezvous. Now who knows if the difficulty with the BLM has anything to do with the griping of a very few people for political gain, aimed at a large group of people who, for the most part, are very responsible. Recently, the Cheaprvliving people sent out a poll asking people whether they would mind camping at Anza Borrego State Park. The problem is, Anza Borrego is in California. A lot of people don't like the politics of California. So, a few of them said no, they wouldn't come if it was in Anza Borrego. But the majority of people said, heck, it's the RTR. The RTR has changed a lot. It's no longer a meeting of 40 or 50 people learning about being a nomad and looking for jobs. It's a representative of an entire lifestyle. And most people said, we don't care where you have it, we'll be there. When I drove through the Anza Borrego Park after the last RTR, I had two opposing thoughts. My first thought was, this is perfect RTR territory, because it's exactly what many of us look for when we go boondocking. But my opposing thought was, This would never work for the RTR because it's not close enough to any great city, and maybe, just maybe, there's not adequate cell phone support for 10,000 users. Here's what my thinking is, and I'm just one vote out of 10,000. It's just a point of view. Bob Wells, you have your RTR wherever you want to. I'm going to be there. I'm coming for the camaraderie, the friendship, and I don't care whether I put money in the pockets of the people in Quartzite. If they can't recognize the opportunity they're losing, well, I'm really sorry for them. But I'm really coming for the RTR now, and not for the big tent. I also don't see this as a political event. I'm coming to a rendezvous of nomads in the desert. The argument that we're all poor and we're trying to get something for nothing is just ridiculous. Bob does have an organization called Howla, and Howla does help out a very few people who are in extreme financial distress. A lot of that money comes from the RTR. So we're one nomad helping out another. It's certainly not the government giving handouts, as has been portrayed. Here's what Bob says about where the next 2020 RTR will be held.
And so this is an update on the RTR. And the update on the RTR is I don't know a thing.
So apparently, no one knows where the next RTR will take place. Quartzite, we enjoyed being there, and if you want us there, great. If you don't, I'm happy to move on. Again, that's just one point of view. I'm certainly not the one making the decision, and in fact, no one ever really asked. So it's just one point of view. I can't imagine the BLM administrators are going to be very popular with local townspeople if they lose the spending power of 10,000 people over 10 days in such a small place called Quartzite. But that's something they'll have to figure out. If you liked today's video, I hope you'll press like. And for sure, please leave your comments. Where do you think the next RTR should be? And I'd be interested in hearing whether we should have a summer RTR, because a winter RTR is so much fun. And any other comments that you may have, I'd love to hear those too. You can make breaking news. Leave your comments here. And most of all, the page lives on subscriptions. So if this is your first time here, please subscribe. And be sure to hit that bell thingy. That way you can decide whether to listen to my next video or not. Otherwise, you won't even know I posted. Well guys, this is Tim Painter from the Van Life, wishing you all the best of travels. I hope to see you on the road, and, well, we'll chat soon. Bye-bye.